Tonight's safety briefing is about pre and post-flight inspection. This is Dennis Dalton, so this is the safety meeting for September 26th, 2023. Clean airplanes. Everybody's been doing a great job of cleaning the bugs off the wings. And as you can see, here's the dirty wing, and here's many of the planes in there, and it looks really good. So that was one thing. I had a discussion with Neil after we had our standardization meeting, so a lot of these points came up from that. And so me and Neil took a walk around the hangar. Look what was under the bugs. Well, this one is a little older, but some of these new hangar rashes that are showing up now are not. So they're showing up more now since the wings are clean. Here's some scraping up here. So the point is to be very careful when you have a wing walker that's helping you, to make sure they're looking at the wing, because that's what they have to look at, the tip of the wing that's moving around and hitting these other planes, and not just looking at you or looking at their phone. So please be careful with that. That's a repeated bang, 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 bang there. Parking into the wind. Door damage from the wind blowing the door into a catch mechanism. I know sometimes it's difficult, but if the wind is blowing 10 to 15, it only takes that to catch that door and whip it open. And the door catch will smash right through the top of the door, which as it did in this one, and put a big hole in it. The door catch mechanism, it's made to hold the door open, not to catch the door when it swings open. Parking into the wind prevents it from catching the door and violently swinging it into the latch. Here's the latch up here, and it's a kind of a sharp little piece of aluminum that sticks out and goes into this. This is the inside of the door. This is what it would look like from the outside of the door. So they will hold the door open, but as I said, and if the wind is blowing from the nose towards the tail, all it can do is close the door. It can't really blow it into this bracket, which really can be a pretty violent thing. And the other thing, we didn't talk about this, but in closing those doors, they aren't car doors, so you can't really slam them. You should close them gently and lift the latch and push on it, and then let the latch go again. Although the latches are made with a spring in them to kind of go over the latch pin, it's really hard on them if that's done about 100 times a day. Flap travel bracket. This one he happened to have the flap off, so it was a lot easier to get in here and take some pictures. You're looking for cracks at stress points like the attachment points. This point back here is a closer view right here, and it's generally these thinner pieces of aluminum that can crack around the rivets or crack right here. People, it's just the way it is, but we have to take care of these airplanes. And yes, that isn't a speed brake. You do have speed limitations, but and putting them down above those really can be hard on them. But just the amount of use they are too, you just need to keep an eye on this, because as everything in here for pre and post flight, you should be doing these things to see if anything happened to it, so the other person doesn't catch it. And which we'll get into a little more with tires. That's always a good idea, because if this thing cracks and it starts moving around, it can go after other stuff up in here. If this one's moving around back and forth, or it can wear the hinges out. Nose gear. Notice the bulkhead bracket and attachment to the nose strut. This is the bulkhead back here. This is the big bracket. It's one piece, and it goes around the back of the nose strut here and then bolts to the front clip here. When you see the next slide, you'll be seeing this piece here, which was still bolted to this, but the cracks were right here on both sides, and that guy broke off. The left picture, the bulkhead bracket's completely detached from the strut. It kind of makes the strut not, and here's the bracket from the bulkhead right here, or firewall, as however you want to call it. The right picture shows the front half of the bracket and two broken ends of the back bracket. These are the back bracket ends that broke off here. This is the front bracket. So the front would have went around this way, and then the two pieces that broke off the back bracket here. Look at the break points. The right side looks cleaner right here. Left side broke undetected sometime before the right one, usually because when you see it kind of dull and rounded edges, it'd been moving around a lot. So in your pre-flight, you need to get under there and have a look at these things, because once one thing breaks, it can really mess up a lot of other things until it finally lets go. And of course, as this one was found on the runway, this piece here, and it was just taxiing around with this. There's not much holding this in anymore. It can just move back and forth. It does have an attachment up in here on the top, which I didn't take a picture of, and I don't know what happened to that one, you know, when you're doing this, because that's taking a lot of stress load. Tires and brake lines. This is all pre and post-flight inspection points. Picture on the left shows a good looking tire. Nice. Notice the metal brake line that travels along behind the strut. That's this thing right here. It's very easy to step on this line and bend it. The picture on the right shows the underside of the tire hiding a flat spot right here. That should be documented on the pre-flight. And I know that Neil's talked about it over and over again. You know, looks good. Why don't you give it a roll? And then here comes one of these that was on the bottom. This brake line on the left picture is new because it was damaged by somebody stepping on it. Here's the step. You can see where this is worn here. People dragging their feet up and down, their heels, all kinds of stuff. You just hook these lines and they're just going to go, you know, these aren't stainless, I don't think. And, you know, you just get, it doesn't matter. I mean, you keep pushing on these things back and forth. That's why they get all bent up. And then they eventually break. You can't put brackets on here because of this can't be drilled into or clipped onto. This is the landing strut. And I don't know where this one broke, but, you know, all the way down here to the rubber line. The tire in the picture on the right is not safe to fly with. I'm sure everybody's pretty aware of that. You know, in my experience, it's, you know, maintenance was different years ago, and we had, you know, we had some dried tires and check tires, and I had two flats, and I don't think they were on the landing. I think they just would start to give out, and you get up to altitude, it's like a bag of potato chips you bought in Topeka, and then you came here and, you know, and landed, and the darn things were really tight like a balloon. And what happens at altitude is the same thing, you know, and then they just, if there was a weak point anywhere, it's going to leak. And so that's the issue with this. You know, it looks like we're down in there, and, you know, it's going to hold air, but then after a while, you know, you get up to altitude and it'll start leaking, and then you come down and there's no air in it. And that was my experience on two that I had here. I've had them other places too, but both of those were main gears, and both of those, one was on taxi and one was on landing. There were issues we talked about as far as not moving the planes. That one I had was on 17 right, and it was on Sunday morning, and I called Bob, and he just said, get it off the runway. Well, those things are heavy when the tire's flat, and you can't get it off anyway, and if you do, it doesn't matter because it's still blocking the runway unless you can get it all the way to the taxiway, which you can't. So, you know, you do have to properly do that, and you're supposed to call maintenance no matter, you know, any time of day or night, I guess. and not move it. The U-bolt. Okay, open each door on pre-flight and post-flight. This is the right door in these pictures. Lift the carpet, this carpet here, right inside the door. This is a door jamb here. Remove the plugs, these two guys. Don't lose them, put them back. What's in there? Well, here, there's a hole in there and there's a bolt. Well, that's the top of the U-bolt and the nut. Inspect the nuts by, I would say, touching them, pushing on them with your finger, and visually studying their position. To me means, do you see any shiny stuff around there? Does it look like they'd been moving around? Does it look like there's no threads on this one and there's threads on the other one where it was backing off? Do you see any cracks in the nut? Does it look crooked and the nut setting in there straight? The picture on the right is the nuts and the broken U-bolt. Here's a broken U-bolt going around behind my head. And this one broke at the corner, which would be a stress point. This one broke right under the nut as if maybe it wasn't, that's where it would have been tightened, and maybe it has stress point there too. So the thing is one side broke first, probably this one, I don't know, and then left undetected because it wasn't inspected, then the other side broke. And a loose U-bolt can destroy other parts it's attached to as it moves and flexes. Either of these breaks would have been easy to detect by touching the nut and pushing on it. Draft tube and small oil leak. Here's a small oil leak down here. On a new car, you don't want to see any leaks. On old planes or old cars, they tend to leak. What's this leak from? Here's the crankcase where it starts. This is the crankcase here, right? This is the two halves of the engine block. This is the vent, this tube here, and it goes around the back, and then it hooks to the top of this metal tube, comes out down here. Crankcase ventilation tubes alleviate pressure in the crankcase and carry heavy oil vapor out of the engine. Passing air in the slipstream passes the bottom of the tube and creates low pressure right here. And that's thus pulling heavy saturated vapors out of the engine. These are actually common in cars through the late 50s and early 1960s. Then they started to reroute this stuff back into the engine and burn it. And they do a lot of other stuff with them today. So slight dripping is okay. They do have canisters that capture some of this if you have excessive oil bypasses, they call it. It's going past the rings or the valve stem seals or what have you. And I got one on my plane. It's like a little can, and I don't know if it really helps, but they sell different things. This one's just a straight shot going through here, as it starts out here and goes this way. Anyway, so may not be a problem. If there's a great big puddle here, the problem is probably, in too much blow by, they used to call it, which is rings. But by that point, he'd have some plug issues, and he would already know about it. 781A, a look back at previous pages. Neil pulled these two out for me. This is the first page. You turn the page, and it goes to this one. The issue is that the left page comes before the right. The left page deferred the strobe as in and Neil deferred it right here. He was showing it to me because he says, I deferred it, and then it was written up 2 more times, and then Anthony did it, deferred it again, and then it was written up again right here. I think that this is the end of the post and pre-flight items, but I think there should be, and I'm saying in the live presentation will be a discussion about this, because I can, I'm not going to say in this, but I know that they're all supposed to be working, I thought, even during the day. I'm not sure about the because they, as a military plane, they take the place of the nav lights. Now you couldn't do this. You couldn't fly it at night like that. During the day, that's something I would like to have a little discussion about in the safety meeting, because I don't think it's, but maybe if he defers it, then it is. I'm not sure. So anyway, and since it's during the day, maybe it's not necessary for civil flight. So that could be it. In any event, okay, that's enough on that. Now for the drawings, that's the end of the safety presentation for September. This is Dennis Dalton, the safety officer.